I gifted my daughter a $950,000 penthouse to start her dream life. But the same week, her fiancé's freeloading family stormed in, rented out her guest room, and treated her like staff. She almost lost everything, until I turned the tables with a plan so brutal, they never recovered. You won't believe how. If someone had told me a year ago that my biggest heartbreak wouldn't come from losing love, but from watching someone I trusted turn into a stranger, I wouldn't have believed them. My name is Isla Raymond. I'm 31, a software engineer living in Seattle. I used to think I was pretty good at reading people, until I met Derek Nolan. It didn't start off badly. Derek was quiet, polite, always attentive. We met at a community film event, of all places. I had volunteered to help with the tech setup, and he was showing his short documentary. He approached me after the screening and thanked me for making sure his audio didn't cut out. One thing led to another, and within weeks we were going on walks through Pike Place, grabbing street tacos in Capitol Hill, talking about everything from politics to past hurts. He didn't have a car, but that didn't bother me. He said he preferred biking and was trying to live simply. That sounded admirable at the time. I told myself he was practical, not poor. When he said he was working freelance as a videographer, trying to build a real client base, I admired the hustle. I had no idea then that freelance was code for between gigs, or that he wasn't really trying. Still, I fell for him. Deeply. I thought maybe I had found someone who saw me, not my job, not my last name, not the bank account my parents had built. Just me. That was rare. My parents, especially my mom, had reservations. She's a retired architect who spent her entire career designing elegant homes across the West Coast. She knows how to spot a bad foundation, even in people. She never said she disliked Derek, but I could tell. She was always watching, measuring, waiting for something to crack. Dad tried to give Derek the benefit of the doubt. He even invited him to his company's New Year mixer, which Derek attended wearing a suit I had bought him. I remember thinking he looked handsome that night, like he belonged beside me. He made everyone laugh with some story about filming a local wedding where a raccoon stole the cake topper. My dad chuckled, and I exhaled. Finally, they're warming up to him, I thought. 6 months into the engagement, my parents gave me a gift. A huge one. They purchased a $950,000 penthouse apartment in downtown Seattle as an early wedding present. My mom spent weeks redesigning the space, open kitchen, warm lighting, glass balcony panels with a perfect view of Lake Union. I didn't ask for it. They insisted. "We want you to start your new life with something that's truly yours," my father said. I told Derek the news, expecting surprise, maybe even a little joy. Instead, he just nodded slowly and muttered, "Cool. That's really generous." Then, after a pause, "Should we list it under both our names?" I blinked. "It's a gift from my parents," I explained. "They're putting it under mine." He didn't argue. But the way he looked at me, it was like a crack formed that night I didn't see until much later. A week before the wedding, I was still organizing final details when Derek texted me. "Hey, my parents are in town. Is it cool if they crash for a bit?" I said yes. I didn't expect them to show up with suitcases, bags of groceries, and a smug attitude like they were checking into a hotel. His mom, Lena, walked in and immediately wrinkled her nose. "Bit much for just 2 people, don't you think?" she said, scanning the place like she was inspecting a rental. His dad, Carl, opened the fridge without asking and said, "Do you only eat this rabbit food? Where's the beer?" I told myself to breathe. Be polite. Smile. This was my fiancé's family after all. But then things got weird fast. The next morning, I noticed the nameplate outside the apartment door had been replaced. My last name, Raymond, was gone. In its place, the Nolans. I stood in front of the door, stunned, as if someone had erased me with a label maker. Inside, Dana, Derek's sister, was giving a tour to a couple holding luggage. Turns out, she'd listed the guest room on a short-term rental app without asking. "Figured we could make a little side cash while we're staying here," she said, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I was speechless. I confronted Derek that night. "They can't just move in and treat this place like it's theirs." He rubbed the back of his neck. "They're just excited, Isla. It's not a big deal. Renting out a room without asking isn't excitement," I snapped. "It's disrespect." He frowned. "Can't you just be patient? They're not going to stay forever." But every day it got worse. They went through my personal drawers, used my work laptop. Lena started demanding that I cook full meals, saying it's only right since she's a guest. Carl made jokes about my job, calling it overpaid keyboard tapping. Dana constantly criticized my outfits, asking if I was trying too hard to impress someone. When I tried to say no or set a boundary, they acted shocked, like I was being rude for asserting myself in my own home. Then came the night Carl sat across from me at the dining table, wiping barbecue sauce off his chin, and said, "You know, this place would be better off in Dana's name. You and Derek will probably want to move out once you have kids. She can take care of it." I laughed. I honestly thought he was joking. He wasn't. He leaned forward and said, "It just makes sense. Family looks out for family." That was when I realized this wasn't about family. It was about claiming what they thought they deserved. And I was just the obstacle in the way. I stared at Derek, silently begging him to say something. Anything. He looked down, didn't say a word. And in that moment I felt it. The betrayal. The shift. The final straw. I didn't raise my voice. I just stood up, walked to the bedroom, and closed the door behind me. That night I drafted a message. It was just 7 words. "We need to talk. It's over, Derek." Ending the engagement should have been the end of it. But with Derek, nothing was ever that simple. The next morning, I sat across from him in the living room, both of us surrounded by boxes they never even asked to unpack. I told him plainly that this wasn't working, and it never would. I expected pushback, maybe anger, maybe some attempt to talk things through. Instead, he just stared at the carpet for a long time, then mumbled, "You're giving up too easily." I didn't flinch. No, I just finally see things clearly. I thought that would be it. He'd pack up, his family would leave, and life would move forward. But instead of closure, I got an email. Not a message. Not a call. A formal email with a subject line that read, "Final settlement, pending dues." I thought it was a mistake at first. Then I opened the attachment. A spreadsheet. Color-coded, itemized, detailed like a tax audit. It included things like coffee runs, $4.75 x 28 equals $133. Scooter gas, $8 x 12 equals $96. Takeout sushi, shared $48.70. Parking fees during date nights, $21. Used camera lens, gift $315. Valentine's dinner, split bill $44.50. Grocery trip when I had the flu, $60. The total? $4,210.75. At the bottom, he'd written, "Since the relationship is ending, I think it's fair that we part with balance. Please transfer this amount within 10 business days." I read it 3 times. Then I called my mother. Marina didn't say much. She just asked me to forward her the email. 20 minutes later, she showed up at my door with a thick envelope and a stiff posture. I opened it to find a check written for the full amount, torn in half. Taped to the ripped check was a note in my mom's handwriting. "We've forgiven plenty. But if it's balance he wants, here's our count." And below that, a list. DSLR camera package, $1,200. A rent support during unemployment, $2,000. A grocery expenses over 6 months, $1,500. Emergency hospital visit, Carl, $1,800. A film festival registration fees, $1,000. Birthday gift, laptop bag plus jacket, $200. Flights for Derek's cousin's wedding, $1,800. Total, $9,500. And she signed it. Debts we never mentioned. Until now. I sent a photo of the torn check and the note back to Derek with no message. That was it. No further reply from him. At least, not for a while. But the silence didn't last. 2 weeks later, I walked into my office building and noticed a crowd near the lobby. At first, I thought there was an event. Then I saw the security guard arguing with Lena, Derek's mother. She was standing next to Carl, who was holding up a wrinkled sign made from cardboard. It read, "Seattle scammer, she stole from our son." Derek stood off to the side, red-faced, saying nothing. They had come to my workplace. My actual job. In broad daylight. With signs. Lena was screaming that I used her son, took advantage of him, tricked him into spending his life savings. The receptionist looked at me, confused. "Is that your ex's family?" I didn't answer. I pulled out my phone and dialed my mom again. I was shaking, partly from fury, partly from embarrassment. Marina didn't hesitate. Within minutes, she was at the lobby, arms folded, voice calm but lethal. She walked straight up to Lena and said, "You're trespassing. My lawyers have already filed a cease and desist, and now we'll be adding public defamation and harassment." Carl tried to talk over her, yelling, "She ruined our family." But Marina didn't blink. You mean the family that lived off my daughter like parasites? Derek still said nothing. Not a word. Not a glance in my direction. Security finally escorted them out. But by then, half the floor had seen it. Some co-workers avoided my eyes, others sent messages like, "Are you okay?" Or "That was insane." And it was. They didn't just cross a line. They erased it. I sat at my desk afterward staring at my screen, trying to calm my breathing. I wasn't hurt anymore, I was livid. Not because of what they did, but because I let it go on for so long. I kept thinking if I stayed kind, stayed patient, stayed small, they'd respect me. But all I did was teach them they could keep taking. That night, I changed all my passwords. I blocked Derek's number. I deleted every picture, every email, every trace. Except one. The spreadsheet. I kept it as a reminder of how far I'd let someone push me, and how far I'd come back. Weeks passed. The scandal faded. I focused on work, slowly piecing myself back together. I stopped checking for his name in my inbox. I stopped wondering what he was doing. Then, something unexpected happened. I was invited to speak at a cybersecurity panel downtown. I almost declined. I was still finding my footing, but something told me I should go. Not for revenge, not to prove anything. Just for me. That's where I met Micah Ellis. He was one of the co-panelists. Calm, grounded, smart in a quiet way. We didn't exchange numbers. Just shared a few thoughts during the event. Talked about AI misuse, digital privacy, and oddly, the importance of keeping backup files. Later that week, I got a letter. Yes, a real, handwritten letter. It was from Micah. He said my ideas were sharp and that he appreciated my perspective. He also enclosed a book on leadership strategy with a yellow sticky note on Chapter 3. You might like this. No overstepping. No pushing. No flattery. Just respect. And for the first time in months, I smiled without bitterness. I didn't know what would come of it. I didn't care. It just felt good to be seen without being used. But of course that peace wouldn't last. Because Derek wasn't finished. Not yet. The first sign came like a whisper, just a random message from an unknown account on one of those anonymous gossip forums. A blurry photo of me and Micah from the cybersecurity panel. The caption read, "Seattle tech girl leaves broke fiancé for millionaire investor. Guess love has a price tag." At first, I laughed. Then I paused. The account had no followers, no bio, and just 2 posts, both about me. I didn't need to be told who was behind it. It was Derek. No one else would have reason, or enough venom, to try something that low. I didn't respond. I didn't flinch publicly. But inside, the old anxiety flared up. I didn't want to be seen as someone who traded love for status. That wasn't me. I'd carried him when he had nothing. I'd defended him when others doubted. I paid for his medications, his meals, his dreams. But now he wanted the world to believe I'd stepped over him on my way to better things. Days later, it escalated. This time it was a video, chopped clips of me laughing during dinner with Micah, mixed with audio Derek had recorded without my consent. Bits of arguments between us taken out of context. A 1-second clip where I'd said, "I can't always carry everything," looped with the title. Proof she used him. My heart pounded as I watched it. My hands shook. It wasn't just petty now, it was character assassination. He had weaponized my kindness. I reached for my phone and called my mom. She listened without interrupting. Then she asked me a single question. "Are you ready to end this properly?" I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Yes. I'm done letting him twist the story." That same day, Marina contacted a legal firm she once collaborated with during a housing dispute. They specialized in online defamation and digital forensics. Within 48 hours, they had confirmed the anonymous account's IP address matched one link to Derek's old apartment. We issued a formal legal notice demanding the immediate removal of all defamatory content and filed a civil harassment complaint, including a cease and desist order. We made sure to attach evidence of the previous workplace incident and the invoice email. It wasn't revenge. It was self-protection. And still I tried to move on. I focused on work. I went for long walks. I picked up old hobbies I had shelved during my relationship, painting, journaling, small pottery pieces. Every day felt lighter. Micah and I saw each other occasionally, still keeping it slow. He never asked for more than I could give. I liked that about him. One night after dinner, he walked me to my apartment and said gently, "I like being around you because you don't need me, you choose to be with me." That stuck with me. It was the first time someone didn't see me as a stepping stone, a solution, or a source. But just when I thought it was finally over, the final blow came. A package. Plain brown envelope. No return address. Inside was a handwritten letter from Derek. The handwriting was shaky, almost too careful. The first few lines were filled with regret. I've made mistakes. I see that now. I let my parents influence me. I should have fought for you. He wrote about our first date. The way I laughed over a broken taco shell. The night I stayed up with his father in the hospital, holding Carl's hand when he was scared. He wrote about the things we shared, songs, cheap dinners, our Sunday morning ritual of almond croissants. Then the tone changed. I've lost everything now. You were the last thing holding me together. If you won't talk to me, if you won't even acknowledge me, I don't know what I'll do. I stared at that line for a long time. That wasn't an apology. That was emotional blackmail. He wasn't taking responsibility. He was threatening collapse, using guilt as a rope to tie me back to him. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I handed the letter to my mom, and together, we filed for a temporary restraining order. We submitted every shred of evidence, the letter, the fake posts, the video, the invoice email, the office outburst. The judge approved it within a day. Derek was now legally barred from contacting me in any form. It was over. And for the first time, I believed it. Weeks passed. Quiet, clean, healing weeks. I breathed easier. I worked better. I smiled more. And then something shifted. Granite Tech, my company, invited me to represent them at a global business innovation conference. I was shocked, honored, terrified. I almost said no. But my mom looked me in the eye and said, "Do not let what happened shrink your light." So I said yes. Micah was there in the audience when I walked on stage. I couldn't see his face through the lights, but I knew he was watching. I gave the best presentation of my career. Afterward, as I stepped off the stage, a tall executive from a consulting firm in Chicago approached me. "We'd love to partner on your platform," he said. "You're solving real problems with real elegance." That night, at the closing dinner, Micah sat beside me in silence for a moment before speaking. "I don't know how you feel about me," he said quietly. "But I want you to know, I like you not because you're smart or successful or independent. I like you because when I'm with you, I don't want to be anywhere else." I didn't answer right away. But for the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't scared to trust. I nodded. And just like that, something new began, on my terms. I wish I could say the story ended there. With a new chapter, a clean break, and no more shadows chasing me. But life isn't a perfect narrative. Sometimes the ghosts of our past don't just vanish. Sometimes they wait in the quiet, watching for the moment you let your guard down. A few weeks after the conference, a photo surfaced online. It was a candid shot of me and Micah at the event, smiling, standing a little too close. Someone had snapped it from a distance and posted it with a caption that read, "Looks like someone moved on fast. Money does change everything." It didn't trend. It didn't get shared widely. But the tone felt familiar, bitter, entitled, childish. I didn't need to check the source. I already knew. Derek had seen the photo. And it lit a fuse I thought had already burned out. That evening, I left work a bit late. The building had mostly emptied out. The sky was already turning pink behind the glass, and I was heading toward the parking lot when I noticed someone standing near the entrance. I knew that stance, that tilt of the head, the way his hands fidgeted in his pockets. "Derek." I stopped in my tracks. My heart didn't race. It didn't even flinch. I was beyond fear. He looked different. Thinner. Unshaven. But his eyes still had that same edge, part confusion, part blame, part hope. "So this is it?" he asked, voice low. "You replaced me just like that?" I didn't respond. I just reached into my bag and held up my phone. "I have a restraining order," I said calmly. "One call and you'll be in violation." He stepped forward slightly. "You don't understand. I was angry. I lost everything. My work dried up. People talk. They think I'm crazy now. You made me look like a joke." I raised an eyebrow. "You did that to yourself." His expression darkened. "You were supposed to be different. Not like them. Not like everyone else who gives up when things get hard. You don't get to twist this." I snapped, my voice sharper now. "You lied. You manipulated. You let your family walk over me like I was a doormat. And when I finally stood up, you tried to make me pay for it, literally." He laughed, bitter and hollow. "So now you're with someone rich and respectable. Congrats. You got your upgrade." I was about to speak when another voice cut through the air. "She didn't upgrade," Micah said, stepping out from behind a nearby car. His tone was calm, but his eyes were unflinching. "She just left a broken system." Derek blinked, clearly thrown. "Who the hell are you?" Micah didn't answer. He didn't need to. His presence alone shifted the air. Derek looked between us, something wild flickering in his eyes. You think you're better than me? It doesn't matter what I think, Micah said coolly. It matters that you leave her alone. Now. Derek's shoulders tensed, but he didn't move. He stood there, trembling slightly, breathing hard. I took a step forward, meeting his gaze head-on. You've already lost everything you thought you could take from me. There's nothing left here for you. And in that moment I saw it. The truth sinking into his skin. Not just rejection. Not even rage. It was the crushing weight of irrelevance. He no longer had power over me. He turned and walked away, slow, defeated. That night, I finally let myself exhale. I wasn't scared anymore. The following week, Marina and I sat together on her balcony. She poured us tea, the way she always did when something needed saying, but didn't need to be said out loud. She looked at me for a long moment, then asked quietly, "Do you regret any of it?" I shook my head. Not anymore. I learned what I had to. She smiled gently. You know, when you were little, you used to cry every time someone broke your toys. You'd ask me why people didn't take care of things that weren't theirs. I laughed softly. Still asking that. But now, she said, placing a hand over mine, you know how to fix what matters. And walk away from what doesn't. A month passed. Micah and I weren't rushing anything. We met for lunch, for walks, for moments that didn't need labels. One day, he handed me a notebook. On the inside cover, he had written, "For your next chapter. Whatever it looks like." It was the kindest gift I had received in years. And then, one morning, I received an envelope in the mail. A legal one. Inside was confirmation of the final ruling. Derek had lost the defamation case. He was ordered to issue a public apology and pay damages. Not a huge amount, but enough to sting. That apology went live the next day. Short, cold, forced. But it wasn't the words that mattered, it was what followed. His followers vanished. His projects dried up. Word spread in the freelance community. He had crossed a line and people remembered. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I just moved on. And slowly, I began to build the life I should have started with. A life that didn't require shrinking myself. A life where I didn't have to buy love, beg for peace, or apologize for being too much. I started writing again. Speaking at more panels. I was invited to mentor at a local coding boot camp for women in tech. One of my students asked me once, "How do you deal with people who underestimate you?" I smiled. "Let them," I said. "Then prove them irrelevant." One evening, Micah and I walked along the trail near the lake. The same view I once thought I'd share with someone else. The air was cool and the wind was quiet. He reached for my hand, and I let him. "You ever think about what could have been?" he asked. "Sometimes," I said truthfully. "But I think more about what will be. I don't know where our story will go. I don't need to. What I do know is this. I was once someone who silenced herself to keep peace. Who made herself smaller so others could feel bigger. Who stayed in a place that slowly erased her, one boundary at a time. But not anymore. Now I live with my head high. Now I choose who walks beside me. And now I understand that the best revenge isn't shouting. It's thriving in a world they told you you'd never belong to. That's my story. And I wouldn't rewrite a single line.